got to hold Boris to account now. He is saying that as a result of these measures that he's taking, that people are not going to die in hospitals in the numbers that we saw in April, and so we're not going to see any lockdown deaths this year, this winter, and every question, every statement that he makes now has to be absolutely challenged, has to be fact checked, and he has to be asked questions every time he's caught in a lie.
Yeah, it's got to be brought to account. Right, well, let's put some good news on the end of that, because one of the professional groups we've been very, very interested in for some time, psychiatrists, psychologists, and people trained in NLP, because we've been waiting and waiting to see when those professional people will pick up on the fact that Boris Johnson and his fascist government are using applied behavioural psychology in order to interfere with the minds and the cognitive processes of the British general public. So we had this email, let's take you through it, and I think it's very, very clever, because it's saying, does anyone actually know what the current lockdown laws are? They're not what we think they are. How is anybody supposed to know what randomly changed laws, in inverted commas, actually are? It's getting like parking. We need a law with adequate signage and no penalty is applicable. Now, this is written in a particular style, but just stay with it. If you have no iPhone, no computer, and the so-called national news is confused and confusing, then we have confusion, and that's what we're seeing, Mike. Ideal for post-hypnotic suggestions. Post-hypnotic suggestions are most effective given before the trance is induced. Just to be clear, I am a trainer in NLP hypnosis for more than 20 plus years, and these people who are using these skills technologies are and must be licensed and bound in law to do with licensing agreements stating they must use the utmost integrity to protect others and themselves, and are therefore criminally culpable for the damages they do to others. They must have the person's consent for them to apply psychological technologies. Now, what the person is getting at here is Mindspace and the government's behavioural insights team, where we've got a government-backed programme to interfere with the minds of the nation. And the Mindspace document at the bottom of page 66, we keep talking about this, boasts that the British government can change the way people think and behave, and we will not even know. And what this NLP trainer is pointing out to us, that for people to do that, particularly when it's malevolent action without our knowledge, they should be licensed and they should be capable of being brought to court if they are damaging people and damaging their mental health. So let's go on through. It says, it appears, at least linguistically, that the powers at work are treating the humans as the novel virus, suppressing movement, limiting contact, stopping the ability to communicate freely. A large amount of communication is visual when speaking. So masks remove a large part of the mirror learning nervous system reaction essential to empathy. If we see a face, we automatically try on that expression to empathetically understand another. It would appear that powers at work, of which we are not aware, do not want people to talk to each other. And it ends with this. We now have the minds police hidden in government. How many people, free men and women, need to say no before we're free to have democracy? Freedom for everyone or freedom for no one. We are not the pandemic. The government and powers that rule, the illness of perverse incentive, monetary gain and power mad psychopaths, sociopaths, they're running the show. And the person ends by saying martial law is now happening. Now, we've taken that on face value, but we've had a lot of other material from trained psychologists in particular. We're now getting people trained in NLP realising it's being used as a malicious weapon by the British government on its own people. We've got an interesting video clip here. Is this?
Yeah, so this is from Channel 4 News. Do you remember who they're speaking to?
I'm afraid I don't, because we only got this at short notice before the news, but we are just intrigued by the exchange, and I'm sure our viewers will tell us who is on both sides of this little exchange. Let's have a look.
You seem to argue that there is a real threat of fascism, not exactly as it was in the 20th century, but in a different form with echoes and resonance. I mean, could you just explain how you think that really is possible? Because a lot of people find that mere proposition offensive.
I think the moment where we move immediately to emotions like offense is the moment where democracy really is in trouble.
So that was Christian Guru Murthy asking the questions there.
Yes, thank you. And we had an American professor talking about his concerns about the slide into a fascist state. Now, we want to directly comment on the way that the channel handled that interview, because immediately the attack was on that professor by saying even to talk about mention of fascism is going to be offensive to some people. So that was the attack straight in. But what a way that the counter came back with the explanation, well, if people are upset by the mention of democracy, you can be sure that we are sliding into a democratic state.
A fascist.
It's a fascist state. So interesting that we're starting to see qualified people come up with this warning, but once again we've got these sort of vicious approaches by the interviewers trying to undermine them on the so-called mainstream media.